Welcome to the Sanity Project podcast, where you can awaken your mind to clarity and success even in today's life challenges. We're here to provide insights and solutions that will help you live a sane, healthy, and prosperous life. Here's your host, Joanne Victoria.
Hi, everybody. This is Joanne Victoria, and I'm the host of the Sanity Project podcast. You, the listener, are here to discover a life of clarity, confidence, and success. For over 20 years, You-vize-me founder Jenifer Price, PhD, LMSW, has offered strategic advice to high school, early career adults, and their families in the college and career selection process. Her guidance minimizes the confusion and stress associated with college admissions, lowers the cost of attendance, promotes more timely graduation rates, and increases career satisfaction. And that's a great thing that Dr. Jen is able to do. Dr. Jen has visited over 200 colleges nationwide and helped students collectively win over $15 million in scholarships to date. She recently released the book Generation E.D.G.E, Generation E.D.G.E, your GPS to career success for teens and young adults, and College Edge, which is mycollegeedge.com, an online college advising course for students and families in grades 7 through 12. What Dr. Jen is going to talk to us about today, among other things, is ways to recession-proof the cost of college. Welcome to the show, Dr. Jen Price.
Thank you, Joanne. I'm glad to be here today.
I'm grateful that you are here as well, Jen. And what you're talking about is extremely interesting because sporadically I read and or hear about, students in the 7th to 12th grade that they have to start their college application process. We're in the 8th grade, that they need a lot of extracurricular activities on their resume, and so on and so forth. Could you clarify that, and also along with how to recession-proof the cost of college?
Yes, I'd be happy to. I'd like to start by saying I am a parent. I am a parent of a 6-year-old, and so I try not to be that helicopter parent, that bulldozer parent, that parent who is crafting the next 12 years of his life to help him get into an Ivy League school.
Right.
It is very tempting. It is very tempting at times because of what I do, and I've done this for over 20 years. But I will say that starting early is important. But I still do believe in letting a kid be a kid.
Right.
I still believe in children having an opportunity to play, to be creative, to try new and different things, to explore, just to even have downtime. And I know that it's very tempting to overschedule our children just because we mean well. We want them to have an advantage, to have an edge one day in the admissions process. But I believe that balance is necessary. And based on what I've seen over the years, and by the time the student gets to me in high school, maybe they started soccer when they were 5 or 6 years old. And now they're totally burned out and they've lost the joy of playing that sport because they have been so competitive with it, or they have competed during the academic year as well as during the summer in the summer leagues and the select teams. And so there is some truth to starting early, but I still ask parents to carefully consider all of the involvement that their child has on their plate and still give them room to breathe, to give them room to just crash and sleep and play video games and do normal kid and teenager things. But I will say that if a student is not involved in clubs or activities when it comes time for applying for college, that does put them at a disadvantage. And so one of the things I encourage families to do is to find out what really makes sense for their student in terms of involvement, and then put some parameters around that, put some barriers around that, protect the child from being overextended. It's so easy to get too busy when it comes to, in the name of college applications and being competitive and winning scholarships. And so sometimes it's helpful to have an outside party that's more objective to say, this is enough.
Right.
This is enough.
And that's where you come in. As a sidebar question, you've been at this for 20 years, and I'm sure at different levels throughout this time. Have you found a difference in the generations between applying to college, let's say 15 plus years ago, to applying to college today?
Yes, I have. And one of the differences that comes to mind almost right away is the number of colleges that students are choosing to apply to.
Oh.
And so I would say in the earlier years, 3 or 4 people were fine with that. And nowadays, sometimes people are tempted to apply to over 10 colleges and universities. And I know that it can make sense when the student is applying to Ivy League schools, really selective schools, and you have to maybe put a couple of those on the list just because it's almost like they're wild cards from year to year, depending on what they're looking for, what they want to add to their student body. But it can be quite overwhelming to apply to so many institutions, even when you're using a common application or a coalition application or some state-wide application that could be used for multiple institutions. So I'll definitely say students are applying to more colleges, which means more work, which means you really need support and finding ways to streamline the process. In addition, I would say more and more students and families are taking advantage of test prep companies and tutors so that their student can have higher test scores. And so again, if a student is not partaking in that or participating in that, that actually puts them at a disadvantage.
Well, it sounds like it makes sense. And it's certainly, if I were dealing with middle school children in my life today, I would hire you. I wouldn't put myself through the trauma of, number one, trying to find the right thing to do, quote unquote, the schools to choose. I remember when I thought I was going to college and I only chose 2 and was accepted to both, but that was in the old days. And I was talked out of both of them, actually, and, got a job. But everybody's got their, how unbiased are you when somebody chooses X university / college versus another? Do you tell them to put all of their strengths and energies into one, or do you have them with a common application that's going to blanket all of the universities / colleges that they're applying to?
Great question. And actually, I feel like the college choice is one of the greatest ways to recession-proof college costs, because that's part of our topic for today. But
right.
I feel like so many students, they may pick a college based on where their best friend is applying or maybe where a family member attended versus carefully assessing and thinking about what is it that I need to thrive and survive and to further my career, and what career options am I considering, and can this institution offer that to me? And so when I'm working with a student and their family on building a college list, I'm encouraging them to put together a balanced list. And what I mean by that is schools that they are highly likely to be admitted to, schools that I would call target, which are schools that would definitely want them to attend there. I'm really interested in the student, but they're not a shoe-in for that institution. And then those that might be a little bit out of reach, maybe a dream school or maybe even an Ivy League school or just a really competitive school that's on their list, a couple of those. And so in terms of, do I bring a bias, I would say possibly my only bias would be to advocate for the student and what I think is best for them, because I know sometimes they come with some predetermined thoughts about what they think that they need. And having been an educator, I've worked in the classroom and I've taught, and I've also worked in the counseling office at schools as well. And so I kind of have both. I've had experiences with charter school, traditional public, private school, homeschool at this point. And I've also visited so many colleges, over 200 across the U.S. and some abroad where they primarily speak English. And so I have a perspective that I think is helpful for the student and the family. And so I might make suggestions for schools that they may have never heard of, but I think it's a great fit for them. But at the end of the day, because I am a social worker and we believe in self-determination and a client saying, this is what I want, I do ultimately help the student and the family. go after their dream or whatever it is that's in their heart. I will give them an honest assessment regarding how likely they are to be admitted or whether or not it's even a good fit. And I'm honest with them, but at the end of the day, I will help them pursue what it is that's in their heart. And so from that perspective, I guess I could say that I could present some bias, but the bias is what's going to help the student to thrive and to graduate. I mean, it's not enough to just get into the most.
Right. You have to do the work. Yes.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It would seem to me, what you're telling me is so important to teens and young adults and parents. God, I hope the parents listen to you. Because, somebody who's choosing a college and they're 16 or 17 years old is not really, they're smarter today, yes, but they're not mature enough, in my opinion, to make these decisions without the help that you provide. And I would imagine that you would be quite busy. And if you're not, you better be. Somebody just better knock on your door. You can find Dr. Jen Price at drjenprice.com, and she's at drjenprice.com on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And, we've got more to go in this interview, but I want to make sure that people know where they could find you. And if they wanted to email you, they could email you at drjen, Jen Price, Price, @gmail.com. Because I know there are people listening here who go, how do I do this? This is alien. It's like being on an alien planet for most people, except if the ones that have started when they were in the 4th grade, of course. But moving forward, I think that it's something that this is a specialty to me that is just totally necessary. And you have all of the qualifications, plus you sound like a compassionate, empathetic, certainly well-educated individual, and that's what they need. You listen to people. So
yes, thank you.
Well, it's not only shows in the written form of who you are and what you say about yourself, but also in the way that you say what what you know, and that's important. So, what are strategic ways to minimize the costs of the undergraduate education, and what is considered the undergraduate education?
Yes, and so as we were talking about college choice, I'd like to tack on to that a little bit and just say that through picking the right colleges on the list, a family can save potentially tens and thousands of dollars on the bachelor's degree. The undergraduate degree meaning the bachelor's degree, the first, the 4-year degree.
Right.
So what's helpful about that is, part of the whole college choice in determining a fit, part of it is a financial fit, is the institution of financial fit. And sometimes when you're an entrepreneur and there are ebbs and flows in your income, and depending on when your child is heading off to college, your cash situation could look a little bit different from year to year. And so with college choice, families may be surprised to find out that options can be a lot more affordable than they might think. What I mean by that is if the student is able to secure merit-based scholarships at a private school, the cost of attendance could suddenly become equivalent to a state institution.
Oh.
And so another thing, through putting the right colleges on the list that are a potential financial fit, students can even look at out-of-state public schools and receive enough merit-based money, or maybe there's some type of tuition exchange or discount for neighboring states, and again, pay the equivalent or even a little bit less than if their student were to attend their state university.
See, people wouldn't know this without talking to you.
Right. So those are some things that are helpful in terms of minimizing the cost of college, because I know families want to know, how can I save on the cost of education? And also part of that is helping the student to start the process early through being involved in extracurricular activities, but also starting the actual application for admissions process, meaning writing the essay, filling out the applications, and wrapping up that process early in the senior year. I'm talking about September is ideal for your student to finish applying for college so they can shift their focus to applying for scholarships.
Right. Yeah, there's a method to this madness, that's for sure. And you know that. And that's why I'm glad you're here to help the listeners out. with their children, getting them prepared properly, because a lot of people think that, oh God, just get into the college. I want this, I'll get that. Well, unless you get millions of dollars in the bank that you're willing to share for your child, whether the child is capable or not, even then, that doesn't mean they're going to get in, and that doesn't mean they're going to graduate, because you want your child to graduate from this university or college, not just go for a year and then get bored because they can't keep up.
Mm-hmm.
Keeping up that's the key too. It's important. Otherwise, the self-esteem is just all shot.
Right. That is so true. And so one of the other things that I think is important as we think about containing the cost of college and recession-proofing college costs is to help the student through career testing. And I have a story about my life and in terms of how I ended up in the right place. And I'm sure there's divine intervention really at the root of it all. But I started off as a pharmacy major, and that was an ill fit for me. And I struggled with organic chemistry. I was so determined. I kept retaking the organic chemistry. The first one like 3 times, I Q-dropped it. And then I took it the second time all the way through and made a D. And I took it the third time and made a C. And then I was able to advance to the second organic chemistry for more torture and more pain.
Oh, you poor girl.
And then I was like, maybe I can actually study something that I enjoy. That was my moment, my epiphany, my moment, my aha moment. And save your child from that torment and just help them through offering career testing, giving them an opportunity to take advantage of that. Because if they have some direction, if they kind of know they may not know which house in the neighborhood is for them, but if they can get in the right neighborhood in terms of majors, it could help them pick the right school that has a strong program in that area, and it could help them get in and get out in 4 years as opposed to 5 or 6 years because they're changing majors repeatedly. So that's another powerful way to contain college costs.
That's all very interesting to me because, number one, I've obviously been aware that there are people similar to you that do the kind of work that you do or some of the work that you do, but mostly it's just the high school guidance counselors that are what I'm familiar with. And what advice did they give you, Joanne? Oh yeah, you can be a teacher. Well, hello. I went to a Catholic school, for heaven's sakes. I was going to be either a teacher or a nun. Think about that. And that was the only help that I got. And it was really demoralizing, to say the least. And that's what most of the kids before used to get their information from. But now that Dr. Jen Price is here at drjenprice@gmail.com, people, just send her an email, find out what it is, and then her book, Generation E.D.G.E, your GPS for career success, is on her website and also at amazon.com. And I think it's well worth the reading, as well as there is a place for you on her website to opt in to receive insights and information about getting into colleges that you can afford and that your child can be able to graduate from. And when you say recession proof, we talked about this a few minutes ago. And is that because you're looking at when you said, let's say they take a career test and they have options, they have 5 choices of things that they could do, maybe 3 choices of things that they could do in the near 10 to 20 years of their lives. And then you can find a place for them in the state that they live, or you can find a place for them close by in another state, and the costs would be similar. Isn't that
absolutely? That is totally possible. Yes.
Yeah, I find that intriguing because so I lived in the New York State area years ago. So you have your tri-state, New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania, and it's an interesting concept to know that your child doesn't have to travel that far to leave home and get an education at a place that they can graduate from without spending exorbitant amounts of money. Do you have a recent case that you worked on that you can share parts of it with our audience?
Sure. Let's see. There's so many. Let me think about who I'd like to share about. Well, I can share maybe two. One, I had a student come to me. This was a transfer student. They came to me with, I want this. I want X college. And so sometimes people think they know what they want.
Sure.
When they come to you. And then after just talking with her more and getting to know her and working with her on her essay and learning about her career aspirations, I was able to, and just what she wanted her future to look like, I was able to recommend an entirely different option than what she had come in thinking about. And at the end of the process, and we only worked together for maybe 3 weeks, she was, able to transfer into a school that was competitively priced, one that was in alignment with what she wanted in terms of diversity and in terms of her major. And of course, her parents were happy with the price. And all the way around, it was a better fit than what she thought she wanted. And so I mentioned that because sometimes people come in and they say, oh, well, this is my dream school. And then we kind of dig down deeper and find out what they think their dream is could become a nightmare.
Right. Because they don't know the culture and they don't know what kinds of people they will be involved with and how they operate. Are they having parties all the time? Are they studying all the time? I mean, what's going on there that's going to benefit your personality, that'll
Yes.
work better with your personality, and you're able to help them do that. What was the other one you had? You had another example?
I do have another student. This was a student who was finishing up high school and heading off to college for this fall. And what was tricky about her case is that she was very artistic. And sometimes parents really freak out when they have her son or daughter.
Oh, no, yes.
Whether it's in the visual arts or the performing arts, they think, how will they ever live independently? And they're quite worried about even the cost of college because some of the performing arts colleges are quite expensive. Mm-hmm. Same thing with the visual arts. And so what we did for her is, getting to know her and what she was looking for, looking at her grades and test scores. And then she also had some challenges academically, some learning differences to factor into the process as well. And so when you have that situation arise, you want to think about where can the student go and receive the support that they need, or will they be able to advocate for themselves if they are further away from home in a place that's a lot more geared towards students that are independent, because every college is a different culture. Some are comprised of go-getters, some are more supportive and nurturing, they'll take you under the wing. Others are just really competitive, in some cases cutthroat. And so that's part of why the visits are important, to kind of understand what the environment is like and if a student will thrive and survive or if they'll struggle. And so in her case, I was able to put together a balanced list. When I say balanced, it was balanced in a different way. It was a combination of the more visual arts programs and some state schools to help her decide, because she kept going back and forth. I don't know if I want a state school where I could change my mind and not go the visual arts 100% and maybe do some other things that could help me a little bit more in terms of my income and not go all in, and then some visual and performing arts options. And so, that comes up a lot with students who are maybe in careers that are more performance-based.
Right. They need that flexibility. They need to put their creativity in different places from time to time.
Yes. And so one of the things that I try to do is just encourage the student to think about, well, you want to go this route, but we also have to think about how will you live independently, because this is not just about going to school and spending tens of thousands of dollars and then having a degree that you can't do anything with. It's about, what makes sense for you, what's a good fit for you, and going to that institution, graduating, hopefully in 4 years or a little bit over 4 years, and going into a career. And so because we have those career conversations on the front end and talk about what their plan is, they're able to oftentimes execute on their plan that they develop with me, and then they connect with me on LinkedIn, and I can see the ones that executed on their plan, and they're business owners now. They've gone to law school or medical school. They are prominent in their field, whether it's engineering, maybe they've gone back to get a PhD. It's really makes me feel old, but it also feels very rewarding to see how, some of them really, they took the information and ran with it. And were able
that means that you made a good fit with them. They trusted you. They took your advice. And that's what we're talking about today, that they trusted you and you mentored them more than sufficiently. Mm-hmm. So everybody, Dr. Jenifer Price, Jenifer, her website is drjenprice.com. That's drjenprice.com. I spell words out because sometimes you may not understand what I'm saying. And I know that Dr. Jen Price is more than capable. So those of you who are listening right now, even if your child is only in the 7th or 8th grade, this is where their brains are really getting big. And so while their brains are getting large, have a session with Dr. Price. And then come back every 6 months or so to get to the point where she will know you, she will know your child, she will know your financial situation and your goals and the goals for your child as well. So I want to thank Dr. Jen Price for being here today. It's been extremely interesting to me. And of course, that's why she's here, because she's extremely interesting. And for those of you who have yet to check out my website, it's brand new, talking about helping people find their true calling in life. And you can sign up for multiple episodes and I guess I have to edit this too, missives from me that are relevant today. So you will also receive a free book as soon as you sign up. It's called The True Self Handbook, a guide to transform your life. It's not about going to college. You can call Dr. Jen Price for that, but this is about taking responsibility for yourself. And I want to thank Dr. Jen Price for being here. And as I tell everybody, re-listen to this podcast. And when you re-listen to it, you will also know that there are people who want to hear this. People who have school-age children who are potentially thinking of going to college. Send them a copy of this podcast, and also go to apple.com and leave a 5-star review for Dr. Jen Price as well as for this podcast. Thank you for being here today, Dr. Price. I really, really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And we'll talk soon. Take care. Bye-bye, everybody.
Okay. Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Sanity Project podcast. Please go to AskJoanneVictoria.com to listen to more podcasts. Check out Joanne's coaching programs and get a free copy of her report, 5 Steps to Achieve Life-Work Harmony. That's AskJoanneVictoria.com. Take care, and thanks for being here.